It's a wee bit damp. Wow. Oh man, well, it's been a rather interesting day. Not too far away from the house. Just up in the hills. Took this dirt road up this canyon, and the rains were approaching from the west into the mountains. They weren't too far off, but it must have showered in here sometime before, and hailed. Hail balls on the ground are huge. Pretty wild. I think there's some coming down right now. But anywho, yeah, so it was a dirt road. I was trying to find the end of it. It doesn't go too far up into this canyon past the campground. And so I probably only ventured up at maybe 2 miles. No, probably not even that far. And so as I got towards the end of it, there was yeah, anyway, as I got to the far end of that road, about as far as I dared travel, because there were tire marks on each side of the shoulder, the narrow shoulder that beside the hard pack, and you could tell that anybody gets off the hard pack, it's a total mud soup fest down in there. So took that as a warning. The trail didn't go much farther anyway, so turned around in a safe spot and made it back the mile. I bet it was a mile and a half. And yeah, the rain started coming down, but I don't mind. It's kind of nice to get out into the rain a little bit. But anyway, as I was coming back, well, I passed by a little camp of a few folks, a couple RVs. And I wouldn't say they were the biggest, nicest RVs. Looked like people were kind of living out here for a while. But it makes you think about it, that let's say I got down to that far end of that road, and or a much further, more remote road, and actually had a problem. Let's say I got down that road and I had a problem. Maybe slid off the road, couldn't get my bike upright, off into a ditch, wasn't able to winch it out with my hand pulleys, rope system, and who knows, any number of things. So you have to think about the fact that a lot of times, a lot of places that at least I'm going to be going and do go on these bikes is often into the most remote places where, well, scenes of deliverance come to mind. And so, let's be honest, a lot of the places we go aren't into civilized territory, and there's just this kind of feeling and concern that that you kind of have just a little bit of an uneasiness about it, about perhaps if I had to call upon the strangers that were in that area. You have no idea what type of camp you're walking into. And maybe it's just one person, maybe it's a handful of people, and there's no telling. So to go in there, you just feel, you just imagine feeling quite vulnerable without some sort of means of protection. And so I've been giving it a lot more and more thought lately. I've been wanting to purchase a firearm for a long time now. A handgun, never had one to carry. Either open carry, which is totally legal here in Utah, or concealed. It's super easy to get your concealed permit. And so I've been giving a lot of thought lately, and pretty much decided to break down and get a gun. And it's, it's partly for curiosity, for amusement, for enjoyment, for exercising your rights as a citizen, Second Amendment rights even, and but more importantly, it's for instances where you're just way out into the bush, and who knows, that's kind of tends to be where you run into just the strangest of the strange people, And if you go out there on a bike that looks like you might have some money on board, which rarely I have very much, but you're kind of asking for trouble. And so, places that you leave the bike at a trailhead, and then you go on a hike, and then you come back. There's any number of strange possibilities that could ensue, right? So I think the notion of actually carrying a firearm on my person, on my bike, is definitely something that would just give me a lot more comfort in all the different places I'll be going. So today, after having spent a few different visits into the local gun stores in the area, today I set out to go buy a gun. And so went in, pretty much had them narrowed down to which ones I wanted, and made my choice. And since I've never purchased a gun before, I had to do the initial FBI background check or whatever. And so I guess it's fairly common that half of them end up going into research that takes a few days to do. So wasn't able to get that gun today, but I expect that I will be in the coming days. And so made the decision to buy a gun. Today I had it in hand, was ready to go, and just waiting on the regulations and the policies and the red tape to make it happen. So more to follow on that. Excited to tell you which one I settle on, because who knows, in the days between now and then, I might change my mind 10 times. So stay tuned for that. And so as far as giving you my philosophy on guns and firearms, we're going to whip back and hit me right in the face. But anyway, you probably don't know a whole lot, or you wouldn't guess this about me, but I am pretty much a liberal, middle of the road with most of my philosophies. So the topic of guns, well, that's definitely a hot topic. Always has been, always will be. And as far as finding exactly where you stand on that topic is a tricky predicament, because I've got friends who are on complete both sides of the spectrum, as probably you do too. Friends and family who are on both complete opposite ends of the spectrum, and so it's like I get both arguments, and I'm kind of down the middle of the road. I've got one other firearm, just a small rifle, and other than that, that's pretty much it. So where I stand on the whole gun issue is I support reasonable legislation being introduced. The term reasonable is totally subjective, so that's where the problem is, right? But I'm first freely to admit that there's a gun problem in this country, for sure. But there's also a constitutional infringement problem in this country as well. And so there's no way to win. It's kind of a no-win situation. But yeah, I think that if they did instate some reasonable gun laws, which are a far cry from where we're at currently, and laws that affected me and my family as far as what we could have, I would probably support it. Most anything that's pretty reasonable in an effort to kind of combat some of these tragedies we're having around the country. But then on the other side of the argument is, both sides of the argument are there. But as far as how it applies to me, yes, there's probably people that shouldn't have guns, certainly, and there's a whole list of people that currently can't have guns. And there's probably people that don't really need a gun. And that's kind of where it comes down to, what it comes down to for me. It's kind of like, it's not my place to tell anybody else, really, what they should and shouldn't do. But for me, up till this point in my life, it's kind of been on a whether I need it kind of basis. And up till now, really, I haven't really needed one. Don't really need one. I mean, but there's a lot of them that are really cool, and I would like a lot of different ones. I would like a small assortment of different ones. And so, but as far as the argument of how many people need one, or should have one, or should be permitted to have one, it's just totally debatable, for sure. So I don't want to debate that. But as far as me, myself, as I was saying a minute ago, I'm at a point where I could use one, where I feel like I kind of need one. And sure, I could get by without one, and I could also take some kung fu jiu-jitsu courses for self-defense and whatnot. Probably wouldn't be a bad idea anyway, but besides just carrying a big knife, carrying a gun for self-defense where I travel, in addition to around my home, is something that seems totally reasonable to me and desirable. So that's where I'm at. I think it's totally reasonable, totally acceptable to have a gun, carry a gun, as long as you're a responsible person with it. And if you're not, well, then the law needs to deal with that with you as a person. And sadly, a lot of these cases of mass shootings and whatnot, it's already too late. Too many people have lost their lives as a result of somebody that had access to a gun. But we could go on and on and on about this whole gun situation. But we live in a country that's unlike any other country, where this country was pretty much founded on guns, since the Revolutionary War. And it's just been, we're a young country, and there are so many guns from sea to sea across this entire country that there's no way they would ever be able to take away all the guns if they mandated trying to take them away, which is everybody's so afraid of. And there's no way they would ever be able to deal with all the guns that we have in this country. So I think we're always going to have a problem with it. We're kind of too far gone at this point. So yeah, that's why I think they need to introduce some reasonable legislation on guns, limitations on what you can have. I don't think it should be completely unlimited. But again, this is just my opinions. I'm not super well versed in the history and case by case of examples of infringements, and but I really don't think that the government could, or really would try to, or that the Democrats or that the liberals are hell-bent on taking away everyone's guns. No. In my opinion, they are trying to manage the situation that we're in a way that appeals to the people that are crying out after these tragedies and the family members and so on and so forth. So, would you really expect that massacre after massacre happens, and that those people's elected officials, that they wouldn't put pressure on them to act and respond? Give me a break. Of course that's what they're going to try to do. So I don't know what the answer is, but anyway, look forward to getting a gun and just feeling a little bit more protected. So I've got this other device that I already ordered that's going to increase my overall comfort as I travel out here, and I'm, out here at risk and hanging it out there. So I think between those two items, I'll just feel a lot more secure and a lot safer. So more to come on that. So yeah, that cell passed by, and now look at this glorious canyon. Holy cow, it is really pretty special. Unfortunately, it'll be 3 weeks before I am back here with the bike, so when I come back next time, I have to drive the truck up here. I probably will do that very thing. But yeah, some little tiny dusting of snow up there. It's more like hail. Snow pellets. I'm not sure what you would want to call it. I don't think it's called grapple in this case, but maybe it was. Anyway, beautiful. That river is just a wee bit full to be trying to catch trout in. So hopefully as summer comes into full swing, we can get back up here and catch some of those trouts. So that's it for today. Gotta head back, get a little bit of rest before I pull the night shift. Fresh air, sunshine, and rain. Bonus, man. Got a little bit of rain, mud. Totally awesome. See you on the next one.